Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello. Welcome to today's podcast. We have a special guest speaker today, Joel from Archewell Construction. Or is it Archewell or Archewell Construction? What is it, Joel?
Archewell. A lot of people get that wrong, actually.
There you go. Mate, thanks for putting aside some time today. We're really excited to bring on a special guest speaker like yourself. Tell us more about you and the company and what you guys represent, mate.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks very much for the invite. My name's Joel Davie. I'm one of the directors here at Archewell. Justin Stevenson, my business partner, he set up the business in 2016 and I joined in around mid-2020. My background, previously working for a large Tier 2 construction company for around 10 years, so mainly working on prisons, schools and hospitals. So Justin and I have always wanted to work together. We grew up together in country New South Wales, so we fell in the SDA space and thought it was a good opportunity to branch out and work together. So the last 2 years have been, there's been quite a bit of growth, and we started in New South Wales, one office in New South Wales, and we're in Queensland and Victoria as well as New South Wales and Northern New South Wales. So it's been quite a busy 2 years for us.
So speaking of New South Wales, whereabouts is your office located? And I understand you just moved offices on the weekend.
Yeah, so we were formerly located in Alexandria, in the city there, and we've just moved out to Rhodes. So the team has grown and we needed some more space, so we thought we'd move out. We've moved actually in with a funding partner of ours, so it's timely because they assist with a lot of our developments.
Oh, great! So for the benefit of our listeners, are you a traditional builder, or what kind of firm are you?
Yeah, so we're a design and construct company. So we've got an in-house design team. More recently, an in-house land acquisitions team. I'll talk a bit more about that later, as well as obviously staff to deliver the projects. So I think at the moment we're up to 20 full-time staff. And our, like I said, head office is based in Sydney, and we've got employees in each of those states we're working in as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you said the last 2 years of you guys come into the SDA space. What how have you found the entrance into SDA?
It's been quite. Initially, we were quite lucky. We were working just as a builder, working for a developer who had every intention of, I think they still do have the intention of rolling out a large number of projects, not just in New South Wales, but Victoria. So we were just acting as the builder there, and we were quite lucky in the fact that they were quite forward-thinking, that developer. So we understood the designs from conception. We understood the risks. Obviously, with my background with some health work, so I know an SDA project and a health project, there's some difference there, but there's also some similarities and some synergies between the two. So, yeah, it was quite getting the team up to scratch with the designs and the design guides was difficult at first, but what we've done is we've just kept the same team on the SDA account, and it's worked out quite well. We've got, I think, another 20 projects on the books at the moment, and we've completed another 15 in the last 6 months. So it's worked out quite well, and the projects and the team are enjoying this, I guess, the sector.
That's wonderful. So from a comparisons point of view between a traditional builder who might do normal house builds and dabble into the whole villas, townhouses and, special 6-pack, 4-pack scenario, how do you compare to a traditional builder trying to delve into that area, whereas you guys are specialising in design and construct yourself primarily and not necessarily working as equivalent to a normal builder? What makes you different is my question, yeah. Well, first of all, do you normally build normal houses or SDA houses normally in your business model?
Yeah, so we do. We build a large range of type of projects. So retail residential, high-end residential, industrial and commercial projects. So there's nothing that we really don't do.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the difference between us and I guess another builder, or call it a project home builder, is all of our projects are designed specific to the site as well as the client's needs. So there's no real cookie cutter approach specifically to our SDA projects. And we've found that designing and building with the end user in mind is why we're getting repeat clients. So I guess the difference between us is it's not all about a cookie cutter approach, find a site that suits a specific design, make as much money as possible for the developer. We understand there's an end game there, and specifically talking about the SDA, the purpose of the NDIA is to put the power with the participant. So we understand that, and we like to engage with providers and SILs when we can to ensure that we're providing something that's useful.
Yep. So for the benefit of our listeners, what is a cookie cutter approach versus a project builder versus a D&C kind of business? So what does a project builder mean? That's the question.
Sure. So a project home builder is just generally someone who, and I'm sure you've seen them in Western Sydney. They'll buy a large area of land and build the same type of build. There might be 2 or 3 different variables or colour schemes within that certain area, but essentially they're all the same build. So essentially, what they'll be doing is looking for a site, or they have 3 or 4 different designs, and they'll be trying to find sites that suit that specific design. So there's not that much flexibility with the design or the build.
Yeah, in the SDA space, you got to be very flexible to handle the different living arrangements for participants, because there's so many different disabilities in the sector, isn't there?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So speaking of your other operations and your other projects, you said you got some in Queensland at the moment, is that right? How are they going?
Yeah, so we've got there's actually been a little bit of a delay in Queensland. We caught some hurdles with building approval and some redesigns recently. So they're due to start in probably the next 3 to 6 weeks. They're 4-pack designs. We've found that there's a lot of interest in Townsville. So we've got 4 sites in Townsville and also 1 in Brisbane at the moment.
So Joel, is there much of a difference that you guys are finding as a construction company getting approvals done and completed in Queensland versus New South Wales?
Generally, Queensland has been the most efficient pathway. But just being completely honest, those projects were the first projects we've completed or started to complete in Queensland. So it took some time for the team to get their head around the building approval process, or the BA process, they call it in Queensland. But look, Queensland has been. I think the next time around it'll be a lot more efficient for us and a lot quicker than even New South Wales.
No, that's great. So speaking of New South Wales, regional New South Wales, where you come from, what areas are you focusing on this year for regional?
Yeah, so we've had a few chats with a number of providers, I guess, over the last 6 months, and they've pushed us in, and also the literature is on the NDIA website as well, but we understand that there's a requirement for SDA dwellings in around the Orange, Bathurst, Dubbo, Wagga, those areas, Central West type areas. So, yeah, Justin and I growing up in the Central West, it's really one of the reasons that we started in the space was we wanted to build, some of these dwellings out from where we come from. And, to date, we haven't really. So our focus this year is to delivering those and bringing them to fruition.
Yeah, there's big demand in those areas. So Joel, what has your assessment been in your discussions with providers in regional and third-party groups with regards to demand and supply of SDA stock and demand by participants?
Yeah, the feedback we've been getting from a few key providers in New South Wales is there is a huge demand there, and not many people are building in the space. Everyone seems to be building in Queensland and northern New South Wales, and not many people are building in the Central West. So, we thought we'd get a head start on the back of those conversations and get a head start, put a stock list together for those Central West areas and, see if we can make some tracks and, build some projects in the Central West, because I'm not aware of many people in the West that are building these type of dwellings. You might be know more than me, Min, but...
Mate, I think the path of least resistance is what we're seeing out there. Investors just want to build that first house or that first project, and Queensland has been a cheaper location in terms of land costings, and also the ultimate goal of any investor really is yield, as you know, Joel. And if they can get a block that's cheaper than New South Wales and a cheaper build price, then they'll do so. But as we're now coming to see, there's not much land available in Queensland, let alone Metro New South Wales, as you know, that investors are now saying, well, where are the areas of demand? And as you and I both know, that the areas are regional areas like Victoria, New South Wales, and whatnot. So I think it's great that you guys at Archewell are actually focusing on regional New South Wales, because number one, that's where you come from, you know the area. Number two is you actually are there. But isn't it a bit too far for you as a construction company who works in Metro New South Wales to be focusing so far out to be regional New South Wales?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we get that quite often. So generally, to deliver these projects, we'll send one of our site managers that's an employee out to the site, just so that we know that our DNA's on the actual build. But as you know...
And what's DNA mean?
Just our DNA, as in our business makeup.
Yep.
So how we deliver a project, how we act, within the town, how we deal with trades. It's someone's essentially a part of the Archewell family.
Mm-hmm. So
they'll be sent out. They deliver the project, and generally, because we're building in rural towns, because I know because I come from one. News travels, and bringing business to a town is good. So generally we like to use the local trades, but at the same time we'll have our own employee or site manager on site, ensuring it's built to Archewell standard.
Wonderful. Can you describe the difference in the process that you guys, your team, goes about in delivering a house, like a duplex, for example, versus a villa, six-pack of villas versus a 4-pack of apartments? In the process and delivery of such products?
Yeah, sure. It's generally the same, and it's funny you ask that, because we do get asked that quite often, but it's essentially the same process. It's just a different, design. So it's the exact same planning advice and planning pathway, working out what restrictions we have and what we can and can't do on the site. It's the same design process, coming up with a concept design and then pushing it down, whether it be CDC or the DA pathway. The only real difference there is obviously the build or the construction. So with a single-story dwelling, they're quite simple. The duration is anywhere between 6 and 10 months. 2-story dwellings, like you mentioned, the 4-packs or the 6-packs could range anywhere between 10 and 12 months, and that's simply the fact that, we've got an extra floor, there's a core for a lift, for access. It's simply additional construction timing. So I guess to answer your question, it's the exact same process, but it might just take a little bit longer purely due to the construction.
Gotcha. Now, a term not commonly heard about in Queensland really is the term CDC. What is CDC?
Yeah, so CDC is Complying Development Certification. So what that is basically a list of criteria that basically states if you fit within these guidelines, you can essentially avoid the DA pathway. And to give an example, like it might be if you've got a particular site that allows less than a metre cut to fill from front to back, it allows for drainage from back to front, certain setback requirements, 6 metres at the front, 4 metres at the back, a metre on each side to the next boundary. If you fit within certain requirements of the CDC checklist, generally, you won't need to go down the DA pathway. So I guess the process there is we'd find a site, come up with a concept plan, have a planner review it to confirm that it complies with, I guess, the CDC requirements. And then, if it does, then we push it down the CDC pathway. It doesn't necessarily need to be lodged with council and wait there for 6 to 4 months, or even longer in some cases. So we're finding a lot of success with that pathway, especially in the SDA space. We understand that, participants want, there's a shortfall of SDA housing at the moment, and we need participants, moved into these suitable dwellings quickly. So it allows projects to come to fruition a lot quicker. So if we can find a site, settle on a site, generally in some cases, some of our sites where we're starting on site from settlement within 2 to 3 months. So that's, a design period, and that's, it's fairly realistic to do that as well. As I think in one case we started on site within 4 weeks from settlement because it was using one of our previous designs. So it's quite quick. It's really subject to the design for the site and the amount of design required if that design allows, a CDC pathway.
So what you're saying is CDC compared to a DA process. So DAs could normally go 3 to 6 months just to get council approvals. If that's 3 to 6 months, then what is a CDC time period to get it approved? Yeah,
well, it's all subject to, I guess, the planner's review period. So it's how quickly we can put a concept design, we get a planning report put together, and then once the planning report is put together, we essentially engage a private certifier and then start with the construction documentation. So you're looking anywhere between, depending on the design, the extent of the design, you're looking at, between 4 and 8 weeks from starting on site.
Oh, that's wonderful. Awesome.
In some cases.
Speed to market is very important in the SDA space. Yeah. So, what are the differences, I might ask, between the construction material that you guys use, apartments versus villas? Yeah. Is there much of a difference between the two in terms of products?
No, not really. So, in terms of the, I guess, SDA design guides, you've obviously got the different design categories: robust, fully accessible, high physical support, improved livability. We generally build all of our projects to the highest standard. So all of our wall linings are impact resistant, laminated glass, and that's to the robust category. So we understand that, these buildings need to be quite flexible in terms of who moves into them, and sometimes participants are moving in and out quite frequently throughout the year. So we thought we would just stick with the higher design of all of them, so anyone could move into them.
So are you implying that these are hybrid dwellings, meaning a villa could be HPS and robust? Is that what you're saying, or not?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, we design everything to HPS, or high physical support, but all of the materials, so we use an impact-resistant wall lining. We use, like I said, the laminated glass and the other elements to ensure that the robust category is also complied with.
Wow, I didn't realise that. I think you should make that more clearer in your written material.
Okay. Well, we'll go through and change it, mate.
No worries. So what's your favourite? I mean, I've seen your written material to us in the past. You talked about, one bedders. So you might have a site in a regional town like Tamworth, for example, and you might have an option to be villas only versus a 4-pack of 2-bedders versus a 6-pack of 1-bedders. Do you find it much of a difference, or does it matter to you whether it's a 6-pack or a 4-pack apartment? Or to you, it's just really a...
To be honest with you, the 6-pack and the 4-pack are essentially the same. There's similar cost as well as duration. It's a similar floor square meterage, and essentially, they've both got a core and both got a fire stair. So they're very similar in terms of, I guess, cost and construction. And then the villas, we've really tried to simplify them, not in terms of design, but more from a buildability point of view. We wanted to, I guess, provide something that's private as well as, I guess, easy to build, and something that could be built quite quickly and simple.
So your villas, are they hybrids as well? Hybrid design, as in you can have either a HPS or a robust participant in that villa or not?
That's right. Yeah, all of our designs and all of our builds are built to HPS, but they have the robust impact resistance or the robust requirements.
I personally think the villa will be more of a popular product then. That's just my personal opinion, because the villa is standalone. What, 2-bedroom villa, is that right? Or is it?
Yeah, we've got a range. See, 2-bed, 1-bed, 1-bed and a study. We've got 3 or 4 different designs. But yeah, the 2-bedroom has been the most popular.
Okay, nice. So Joel, my next question is, what's the plan for the rest of for this year, 2022, in terms of earmarked projects and target areas you wanna roll out in terms of new projects this year?
I guess one thing that we're really trying to focus on, and I guess is our focus for this year, is refining our designs. We understand and we're seeing there's a lot of people in the space and trying to get into the space, but I guess we're really trying to refine our designs to keep the end user in mind. I think, by not doing that, and, the purpose of the NDIA is to put the power with the participant and make sure that, the assets are useful for the participants and the carers. So I guess the main focus of us is to, get feedback, refine the designs, and ensure that we're providing something that's useful for participants. And I think ultimately that would, essentially make us, the target is to make us a builder of choice in that space. We don't, like I said before, we don't necessarily want to be, or we don't want to be a cookie cutter approach to these type of dwellings. We want to be personable. We want to engage people. We want to make sure they're useful and, there for years to come. So I guess as a focus for 2022, that's our focus. I know it's not really specific to any projects, but I guess the projects we've got coming up and that are currently in the woodwork are, Victoria. We're seeing a lot of inquiry and around rural Victoria, around the Geelong area, Western Sydney, Windsor, the new suburbs around Spring Farm. Also a lot of inquiry, and, we've started a few projects on the Central Coast. So I think at the moment we've got 5 projects around Canwell and Gorican, which are decent sized projects as well in that area. Other projects in planning at Townsville, Brisbane, and we just signed up one down on the Southern Highlands, which is a pretty decent facility as well. So, look, to be honest with you, our approach this year is essentially just refine our design, complete the projects well. And when I say complete the projects well, we want to make sure that the property is enjoyable for the participant, as well as, also providing a good return for an investor or ourselves. So our approach is to make sure that everyone involved, each stakeholder involved, especially the end user, is, happy and happy with the final outcome.
That's a great answer, Joel. Love it. So another question we have that a lot of our investors ask us, Joel, is they ask us what unique products does this builder offer or this construction company offer? So to you, Joel, how do you answer that question?
Perfect. I guess one thing we see as unique from our end is we're trying to have all elements of the development within our business so we can control it. We found previously, going externally for design and externally for land acquisition, it was time-consuming, costly, and in most cases we would lose the land before we could really, make any headway with the design or have provider interest. So, since then we've developed and created a full-time land acquisitions team. So at any point in time, we've got on their stock list 50 active sites. Just checked it this morning; it was up to 50. So I think a couple of weeks ago I was up to about 75. But the sites, as you know, Min, are coming off the market pretty quickly, especially in rural New South Wales. So look, we've got a number of relationships with real estate agents across New South Wales that are taking them off the market, I guess, while we're marketing those areas. But it's not for long. So, it's part of the purpose of sending out that site list. We want to gauge interest and we want to move quickly and take these sites off the market formally.
Gotcha.
I guess another thing is we've looked at design quite carefully. So I think I mentioned before the designs, we have a number of designs, I guess, 4 packs, single story options, 2-story options, 6 packs, villas and houses. We've reverse engineered, like I mentioned before, the CDC or the compliant development requirements. So essentially this allows us to bypass the DA process. And again, I mentioned before the difference between the DA and CDC pathway in terms of starting on site can be, astronomical, can be between 6 or 12 months. So I guess what we essentially wanted to do was be a one-stop shop for a developer, for an investor, whilst also giving them solutions, that allows us to start to build sooner and finish earlier. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's probably one unique thing or two unique things that I see that we're doing that I'm not saying no one else is doing them, but I'm pretty confident where we're at the moment that we're doing it quite well.
Great. So if a client were to engage Archewell, what is the process for them to engage your company?
Yeah, so one way we work is either you give us a land opportunity or someone will come to us with land. We'll review the site against a number of our designs, do an overlay, basically confirm that, provide a design that we think is suitable for the site. We'll review it against our in-house CDC checklist. If it looks like it's got a bit of a heartbeat in it, we'll go to our planner and get some pre-planning advice. The other option is, if you don't have land, like I mentioned before, we've got, a stock list of up to 50 sites. So typically, or what we've been seeing in the past, especially this year, is investors coming directly to us and saying they have a certain amount of money to spend in the SDA space. So, what we've been doing is working backwards from the amount they want to spend, finding sites that suit and, finding a design that suits. And then throughout that whole process, we're talking to people like yourself, Min, or SDA providers, depending on the area that we're talking to or talking about, to gauge interest, to make sure that the project, make sure that essentially we're not building a project that's won't be housed or used. So I think that's one of the most important things when building these assets is, at the end of the day, they're for a participant and there needs to be that participant interest from day one.
But the final question I have for you before we finish off our podcast today is, what words of advice do you have for any of our listeners who are thinking about doing a larger scale project like what you guys do at Archewell? No matter where they are in Australia and no matter what region they want to do it in, what words of advice do you have for them before they consider such a project?
Good question. I think the one piece of advice, and there's a lot of people and businesses trying to get into this space, and I think if you're going to get into it, you need to get into it, one, for the right reasons, and purely understand how it all works, understand how the funding works, surround yourself with people that have a track record in terms of delivering and housing the projects, and again, fully understand how the funding works, because I feel that, there's going to be some, unhappy investors or people that weren't fully aware of the risks going into them. And I'm not saying there's risks, but, there's certain people out there that are spruiking huge returns when in reality they don't understand the full process and I guess how the funding works.
So, Joel, thanks very much for your efforts today on our wonderful long 30-minute podcast. I think we're going to have to wrap it up and put your details, your website and the description of your company on the bottom of our description of our podcast episode here. And if we have any listeners who want to consider regional Victoria, regional New South Wales, we will happily direct them to Joel to have a chat for more information. But Joel, that's about it really, mate. Any final words before we hang up?
No, that's it. Thanks very much for your time. It's been good to talk.
Awesome. Thanks very much, mate. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.